What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 4 of Banter from the Bench podcast. I am Kevin. I'm here with Sean. Sean, how we doing today?
Not too bad for a Wednesday, short week, which is always a good thing, but excited to get here for episode 4. Hard to believe this is a month's worth of coverage we've got, but been enjoying it and looking forward to doing another episode with you, even though the format might change a little bit. I fired Kevin today, so this might be our last duo podcast, and it might just be me moving forward, but no, looking forward to it. Excited to be here for another episode, and yeah, let's get this thing rolling.
Soundstripe.
Welcome back, guys. Like Sean said, we've got a busy week of sports coverage this week. Even though we've got personally a short week ourselves, we've got a lot to talk about today. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Talk about some national coverage first. I think the easy thing to talk about first and foremost is NBA playoffs. Man, that Celtics series was quick. I think that's probably a good place to start. I know you and I both kind of had the Pacers competing a little bit more than what we actually witnessed ourselves. But, 4-0 sweep, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that, it was interesting because it was competitive in game 1, competitive in game 2, and then unfortunately for the Pacers, they lost Tyrese Halliburton for games 3 and 4. And when they were already down 2-0 in the series, or 0-2, however you want to call it, that was just really hard for a team like them to come back from, especially a team that's so young and inexperienced. You know, you lose your best player, that's it. You know, it was a long shot for them to even really make it a series at that point. And once he was out, I was kind of like, okay, I'm probably not going to watch a second of this. Like, this is over. And sure enough, the Celtics did what they were supposed to do. I've seen some people knocking them a little bit, saying they had like an easy path to the title, but at the same time, it's playoff basketball. Those spots aren't guaranteed. You have to earn it, and they handled their business. They lost 2 games the entire postseason thus far. If you're a Celtics fan, I don't know how you can be anything less than thrilled with that. They did everything they needed to do against the Pacers, and now they get, 9 days off? 8 days off now before the NBA Finals begins. So for a team that has been without Kristaps Porzingis, who we've talked about a lot, he has plenty of time to rest and get ready for the finals, and they just have time to recover and be fresh for the biggest series of the season. So just no real surprises there. Just kind of thought Indiana would have made it a little bit more of a series, but obviously you can only control what you can control, and they they didn't think Halliburton was going to be out, but hey, overall, Pacers, congratulations, great season. A lot of experience that they gained there. They're young. Their future is bright. They'll be a fun team to watch in the NBA, and this should hopefully for them just be the start of a pretty fun run here. So,
yeah, and I think when you talk about like their run here in the playoffs and people saying they had an easier schedule, it's like, okay, cool. They still handled business. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. So why is anybody talking shit at this point? Speaking of talking shit, Jaylen Brown, I think you needed me to make a comment about you because, Jesus, man, did you ball out this series? But I know he was named Eastern Conference Finals MVP. I got kind of a laugh when I saw that myself. Averaging 29 points per game, 5 rebounds a game, 2 steals per game. I know he had a big 3 to tie the game near the end of regulation, and then put up 40 in game 2. So Jaylen Brown, you're welcome. I shit talked you. You stepped up to the plate. Nicely done, sir. But I mean, when you look at the series, I think we all kind of had a feeling that the Celtics were going to come away with this one. It's just how many games could the Pacers steal? I think I was a little bit more hopeful than I should have been with, saying the Pacers were going to win 2 games. But you look at the schedule now, the Celtics have 9 days off before the finals start.
Yep.
I don't know if I love that for Boston. I feel like they're just in such a good rhythm right now. I mean, they're still going to be the better team regardless, right? I think no matter who they play in the finals, it's kind of looking like it's going to be the Mavericks. They're the better team, but I feel like that's too many days off with how good of rhythm they're in right now.
Yeah, it certainly can be. I think part of the big thing in playoffs is getting hot at the right time. Obviously, a little different scenario with the Celtics. They were good all year. They've been good for a few years. They've been contending for a few years. But if you're playing good basketball and you like the way you're playing, you want to keep playing. But at the same time too, obviously we've talked many times about how their roster isn't fully healthy. They've been relying on a guy like old man Al Horford, who now gets a little bit of extra time to recover. That'll be good for him. If he's good, he's a pretty big difference maker for them. So I think for the Celtics, probably is okay. I'm sure they'll do just fine. Getting a little bit extra rest. They might come out a little flat for a quarter or two maybe, and once the finals begin. But overall, I don't think it'll kill them. I think they're still the best team no matter who makes it out of the West, and I think they'll still be favored regardless of who makes it out of the West. And based off some things I've been hearing a little bit, sounds like it might be one of the more lopsided finals in terms of favorites and odds and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like when that comes out. But obviously for now they can sit on their couch, scout their opponents, both of them, and get ready for the biggest series of the year.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of who they're going to play in the West, I think it's just a good time to dive in. I'm a little surprised with how flat the Timberwolves have looked. I know you're a big Timberwolves fan now, so I'll give you the air. I'll let you dive in first before I have any comments on it.
First off, from the last time we recorded until now, I was shocked that we almost would have had both these series done. I didn't think that was going to be possible.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's like I was watching the game last night. This is Wednesday night. I was watching game 4 last night, and game 4 last night, and I was like, this could be it. Like we could have both these series done before we record. But it's been a really interesting series. We talked about it a little bit. I said, like, if any person could will his team to victory, it would be Luka. He's had some moments where he's been a little bit streaky, but for the most part, he's pretty much done that. And it was on full display in Game 2 when he had a triple-double. He had 32, 10, and 13, plus a game-winning 3 with about 3 seconds left. And, he's been pretty solid for them, obviously. You kind of expect that. Kyrie Irving's been good for the most part, too. They just lost Game 4 last night, and he had an interesting quote before where he said, he was at shoot-around before the game, and he said, this is the Super Bowl for them. This is just a regular game for us. And then he ended up having his worst game of the series, so I was like, that's kind of interesting. But overall for the series, I think there's 2 really big takeaways here that I've kind of noticed, and both fall within the Timberwolves. Is granted, now that we're 4 games into it, he's been a little bit better, but Anthony Edwards was irrelevant those first 2 games. And Game 1, you could clearly tell he was gassed. Just towards like the end of the third and into the fourth, you just watch it. It hurt watching that guy run up and down the court. Like, he truly had nothing left, and he was just not nearly the type of player he usually is. And then he struggled again in Game 2. They kept it close in Game 2, and that was 99.9% because of Naz Reid, who had 23 points and 7 threes for them off the bench. So you kind of got a lot of contributions from him. He's been good for them all year, but you don't really expect him to be the guy that shines the most. If he is, something's wrong, which clearly has been. And now Game 3, Game 4, Edwards has played a little bit better. I know Game 3 he was still a little bit rocky, but ended up doing okay. And then last night he was, I think, an assist away from a triple-double. So he's starting to kind of go back to form. I know in game one he was following Kyrie around the whole time, and I think that's a big reason why he lost some energy because he's just not used to that. And not to mention, too, obviously, this is the longest he's played basketball in his career. He has not been to the Western Conference Finals before, so that's a lot, too. And he's been healthy this year, so he's got a lot of mileage on those legs this year, and I think that we're starting to see that shine in. But, with a player like him who's 22, this is all a learning experience for him still. It's his first Western Conference Finals. I'm sure he'll be back at some point, and I'm sure he'll look better at some point. He'll figure it out. But been a little disappointing to watch him play the way he's played, but he's gotten a little bit better. Before we kind of move on to the next point I want to talk about here, just curious your thoughts on Edwards or just what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I think he exerted a lot of his energy just eliminating the Nuggets too. That was a big series for him. That was a big series for their team. And he's still young. He's still learning, right? Dominating last series looked easy to him. This series, not so much. And I think that this is a big learning opportunity for him. Plus, I saw a stat today. This is actually kind of ridiculous when you think about it. So the first set of numbers I'm going to give you were Kyrie and LeBron in 2016, where they were both in their prime, okay? So combined, Kyrie and LeBron scored 44 points a game, had 10 rebounds per game, and 11 assists per game. Okay, so 44, 10, 11. You look at Kyrie and Luka this season, their averages are 59 points per game, 14 rebounds per game, 15 assists per game. 59, 14, and 15. So that just goes to show Kyrie's also balling. Luka's looking good, but Kyrie is also still playing really, really good basketball, even at this age. For them to have 15 more points per game than LeBron and Kyrie, another 4 rebounds, and another 4 assists per game, that's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. So that's just how good the Mavericks have been playing, and kind of quietly, too, up until this series. I feel like now the Mavericks are starting to get all this media attention because of how much media attention the Timberwolves got prior. So all eyes were on the Timberwolves, and now the Mavs are just kind of manhandling them, and they're like, wait, what's going on in Dallas? So I honestly think the Mavericks will probably win the next game. I think it'll be a 4-1 series. I think that was probably good for them to get a little heat check last game, but it's really just been one story, and that's just Dallas dominating. That's really all I have for you in regards to that.
So back to the prediction portion, I think because they're going back to Minnesota, I think Minnesota wins again, and then I think Dallas just takes it at home. Another thing that stood out to me a lot in this series, and I think we're seeing the end of his time here, is Cat. Until last night, he has been horrible. He has just an absurd amount of confidence in his three-point shooting and his shooting ability. He's letting it fly, and he's up until last night shooting horribly, and they've kept him on the bench down the stretch quite a bit. And we're just kind of starting to see hey, maybe this guy doesn't really fit what they're doing, which has always been a topic. It was a topic last offseason and all this year too, but I think we're getting a really good look now. It's starting to show, and kind of going along that point too. I know I talked heavily about how I thought Minnesota's bigs were going to dominate, and I thought they were going to have a really big series. Dallas's bigs have looked better, even throwing Gobert into the mix. They have looked better. Daniel Gafford, granted he's not lighting up the the score sheet or anything like that, he has been rock solid for them down low with rebounds, with blocks. He's getting big dunks for him, giving him momentum. And, Derek Lively, granted he's hurt now, and who knows, he might miss. I know he's definitely missing the next game, but who knows what his outlook's going to look like after that. He's only a rookie, but he was looking great too. Those were two guys just watching. I've watched mostly this whole series. Those were two guys where if I didn't know anything about the NBA, I thought they both would have been there before. That's how good they were playing and how just poised they looked in that moment, especially, guys who are complete after. And I don't mean this to be offensive or anything like that, but when you got Luka and Kyrie on your team, complete afterthoughts on that roster. They're just role players, and unless you're a Dallas fan or Your Lively's he's been a little bit more known this year just because he's had a pretty good rookie campaign. But unless you're a Dallas fan or a fan of a team that they've played on before, people probably didn't really know who Daniel Gafford was until this series or this postseason, and now he's looking like a little beast for him. So that was one thing where I was like, I couldn't have been more wrong about that. It's Dallas's bigs who have been the most impressive, but obviously, Minnesota can't lose another one. They're heading back home. I find it hard to believe that they're going to be able to pull this out, but especially with who's on the other end. Kyrie Irving's the type of guy where if he does anything right, it's clutch moments. So if I had to go up against him in an elimination game or every game was an elimination game, I would not feel great going into that just because he is just ice cold in a good way when it comes to clutch moments and needing to hit a big shot or, getting a dagger or something like that. So I think this one's over too. I'll give Minnesota one more game. I think they'll win one at home, and then I think Dallas takes it at home, and I think we get Boston-Dallas then.
Yeah, Kyrie's got ice in his veins, man. And I think it's time, to give Mark Cuban a shout out too. He, as the owner of the Mavs, although, did he actually sell the team recently? I remember there were some rumblings.
I believe it was a portion of it, but I think it's set up to where he's still associated with them.
Yeah, because I know he's at the games, so obviously he has a portion of the ownership. But anyways, you got to give it to Mark Cuban, man. I don't know, with the exception of the draft where the Mavs landed Luka, I can't remember the last time the Mavericks were just completely trash. It feels like they're competing in some regard almost every single year. So shout out to Mark too. Exactly.
Not to mention, that's in the West, which is generally better than the East too. Like that's not easy,
It's been that way for a while too. Last time the East was good was, you can't even really say the Miami Heat, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, because it was really just them. I think the last time the East was good is when the Celtics had the big three. The Bulls were competing with Derrick Rose. It's been a while. So
yeah, because when LeBron was in Cleveland, it was really Cleveland and then a steep drop off in someone else. In Cleveland back then, it didn't matter what their regular season record was. Like they were going to just turn it on in the playoffs. They had that Hawks team they played with Horford, Korver, and all those guys who had, like, at the time, a pretty historic regular season, and I think they swept them that postseason. It's just like, it's a lot different. There's usually one or two really good teams, and then the rest is kind of eh.
Yeah. So shout out to the Mavs. I mean, they've played well so far. We'll see, if Minnesota can win one more game and try and make a comeback here, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
At least
shifting to that's fair. That's fair. That would have been even more shocking, but it was on the table. Switching to NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. I think these series have been obviously tighter. One could say more entertaining. I mean, we can start with the Eastern Conference Finals right now. Panthers and Rangers are tied 2-2. What have you noticed out of that series?
That one's been really good. That has been, I would say, the most exciting playoff series among the two, and one of the most exciting playoff series this postseason. And it kind of had that storyline kind of going into it. Both teams measured up really well against each other. Both have great goaltending. And we're seeing that shine through, and it's been a lot of fun. I haven't been able to watch as much as I would have liked to, but I've been trying to tune in as much as I can at the same time. So that's tied up 2-2. Both teams are getting a lot of production. For Florida, Verhaeghe's got 6 points, Kachuk's got 5 points, Bennett's got 4 points, Barkov's got 4 points. So you got four players averaging a point per game or better in this series, which is fantastic. And a lot of those guys are their guys, so they're getting production out of people you want to see. And Bobrovsky in net's been fantastic as well. He's averaging, giving up about a little over 2 goals per game, and he's got a .910 save percentage, so he's doing really, really good. He's living up to the goaltending hype that we have here. And Rangers they're having success too. They got Trocheck with 5 points. He's the only one that's averaging over a point per game. But then you got Gaudreau, Lafreniere, Panarin and Fox averaging, or not averaging, they have 3 points each in the series. Again, similar situation. Those are a lot of their guys. Those are all guys that if they're doing well, chances are the Rangers are doing well. So good to get production out of them. And Shesterkin's been great too. He's given up about 2.32 goals per game, and he has a .931 save percentage. So been a really fun series. We've seen 3 of the 4 games go to overtime. Rangers won 2 of those in a row. And then last night, Florida finally broke through and they won in overtime. So nice to see them get one. They evened up the series last night. So kind of interesting situation here. We're tied 2-2. Home ice is obviously very important. Rangers have home ice in the 2 out of the final 3 games. So that's big for them. Where do you see this series going now that we're tied and we have that kind of landscape of it that we're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I said Rangers in 6, if I remember correctly. Obviously, they're going to have to win a road game regardless. Either team's going to have to win a road game regardless to move on. But this series is just so hard, man. It feels like it's a series where, and I've been able to tune in a little bit too, but it feels like whichever team has the puck bouncing in their direction that night is going to win. Because it's just really a battle of 2 heavyweights. I'll stick with my same prediction just to keep things interesting. I'll say Rangers win in 6, which obviously means they got to win the next 2. But it's been fun to watch regardless.
Yeah.
Western Conference Finals. We've got Stars up 2-1 right now. They are actually the game's about to start here in like 3 minutes. Yep. This one's been fun too. What are your takeaways here?
Yeah, this one's been interesting. This one I've been able to watch a little bit more of. And early on in the series, it seemed like Edmonton had a lot of the momentum. They took game 1 in overtime. Connor McDavid got the game winner in that game, which was fun to see. And then game 2, they came back and they were tied 1-1 with the Stars until the 3rd period when the Stars just finally broke through and ended up taking that game. And and then in game 3, after they finally faced a little bit of adversity there, that Edmonton did in that series at least, they were up 2-0 in the first period, and it's like, who is this Edmonton team? Like I didn't see that coming. But then watching Dallas, it's like, holy crap, this team is freaking resilient. Obviously they lost the first game in overtime. Not much you can do about that. Second game, scoring 2 goals in the 3rd period to come away with it. And then game 3, you're down 2-0 in the first, and then all of a sudden it just clicked. And in 3 minutes and 33 seconds in the 2nd period of that game, they scored 3 goals, which I believe I heard is a franchise record for most or shortest time needed for 3 goals in a playoff game. So they just exploded and really just didn't look back from there. They just, Edmonton ended up tying the game, but Dallas pulled away and ended up winning that one 5-3. So the thing that stood out to me is just the resiliency of Dallas. Edmonton's making it a fun series. I can't say I expected it to be as close at times as it has been, but regardless, it's been fun, and these 2 teams as well, they're getting a lot of production out of guys that you like to see. And for Dallas, they're getting some good production out of their veterans. Jamie Benn's leading the team with 5 points. Tyler Sagan's second with 4 points, and then they got some of their younger studs like Jason Robertson. He's got 4 points. Wyatt Johnson's got 3 points, and Jake Ottinger's been great in net. He's giving up a little over 2 goals per game, and he's got a .938 save percentage. So they got a lot of people that are getting about a point per game or better, and they're getting a lot of help from their veterans, which is nice. And then for the Oilers, the one thing that has me excited in this series is going into it, McDavid only had 2 goals this postseason. He had a boatload of assists though, but he's already doubled his goal total. He's got 2 goals in this series, which has been fun. He's leading the team with 4 points, so he's doing his thing. Zach Hyman's got 3 points. Evan Bouchard's got 2 points, and Connor Brown has 2 points as well. So they've been the guys that have been keeping them going. Obviously, you'd like to see Draisaitl or Nugent Hopkins or more people like that kind of trickle their way in there and start producing a little bit more. But and not Stuart Skinner, he's been better than I anticipated. He's given up about 2.44 goals per game, and he's got an 89.7 save percentage. Not the best numbers in the world, also not bad. So I've been a little bit, I guess, a little bit surprised by his play this series. I thought he'd look a little bit worse, and granted, maybe it's starting to trend that way now that Dallas is kind of really clicking. But overall, been more entertaining than I anticipated. But it's been fun. What are your thoughts on it?
Man, I'll tell you what, if Dallas wins tonight, it is going to be lit in Dallas. Both teams up 3-1 in the series. It's going to be a fun place to be. Yeah, I think Skinner is you're starting to kind of peel back the onion with him, and I think if Dallas starts this game out hot, then he could have a rough night. And I think that's what's starting to happen right now. He had the fortune of Dallas starting out slow last game, with them being down, or I guess the Oilers being up 2-0. So
a little less pressure in those situations.
Exactly. And I think that's helped out his numbers a little bit. But, I think I'd love to see Dallas come away with this one, to see the Mavericks in the finals and the Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals. That would be really cool. But, we'll see. Tonight's going to be a big night. What's so funny over there?
I have a really bad joke. You said it'd be fun to see the Stars and the Mavericks in the finals, and I thought one might say the stars are aligning.
Oh, wow. That's something, Sean.
Come for the sports talk, stay for the good jokes. I'm just keeping them here, keeping them entertained.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, tonight's going to be a pivotal one. Either we're going to have an even series at 2-2, or Dallas is going to be up big in the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Unfortunately, when we switch to baseball, we lead with a story that's not so fun. You look at a guy who's really entertaining for the game, a good clubhouse guy, and honestly gets just about as much media as he deserves. Ronald Acuña. Story came out, he tore his ACL, non-contact play. He's going to miss the rest of this season. Obviously, you don't need to hear this from me on my podcast, but this is a big blow to the Braves, who already lost Spencer Strider. He's gone for the year, and now lost the reigning NL MVP. So, it sucks. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for them. But I mean, what's your takeaway here?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. You kind of nailed all the same things I was thinking. Sucks for the game. He's a superstar in this league. He's fun to watch whenever he's playing. And you never like this. I saw the video of the non-contact injury, and whenever you see those, you're like, this probably isn't good. He was kind of holding his knee in pain on the base pass, and reigning NL MVP on a Braves team that's always looking to compete. That's a big loss for their lineup. And the unfortunate thing for him too is I don't know. I'm gonna assume probably not. He's tore his ACL before. I don't think it's the same knee, because I think that would have been more of a story. I didn't really hear anything about that afterwards. So really unfortunate that this is not the first time this has happened to him. And as a Braves fan, I'm sure that makes you a little bit uneasy knowing you got this guy who's unbelievable, but starting to look like maybe he can't always be relied on with health, which isn't his fault. It's just, freak accidents happen like his just did, where he was just, it wasn't even sprinting or anything like that. He was just on the base pass and he went down. But yeah, really unfortunate. They obviously, like you said, they lost Spencer Strider too. That was pretty much everyone's preseason pick to win the NL Cy Young. So you look at a guy who probably would have been getting MVP votes in Acuña Jr., and a guy who a lot of people thought could win Cy Young in Strider, and losing those two is tough. And I know they were about, I want to say there were 5 games up in the wild card when this injury occurred, and 6 games out of the NL East. I don't think they have a shot in the NL East anymore. Just Philly's playing great baseball. They have the best record in baseball, if not second best. So going to be really hard to keep up with them. Wild card would be their best bet. They'll probably have to make a move or something. I know they just signed Ramon Laureano, who was recently released from Cleveland. I don't think that'll be their move. I think they might look at something at the deadline. And I know we're a Chicago sports podcast, so obviously like some of those ideas trickle in my head. But I immediately think, hey, Tommy Pham's probably going to be available. He'd be a great candidate for them. He can go play center field or go play any of the corners and stuff like that. He's hitting over 300, or at least he was as of yesterday. I don't know if that's changed. A lot can change with the White Sox in a short period of time. We already know this, but yeah, so I think Laureano for now, sure. But I would expect the Braves to do a little something here at the deadline or leading into it. They're, like I said, they're a team that wants to win. They want to compete. They're looking to win a World Series. They're built to win now, so maybe they get aggressive. Otherwise, there's plenty of guys like Tommy Pham out there who could come in and they can hold down the fort while Acuña's recovering. Obviously, they won't give you his production or close to it, but they could be serviceable guys for you and wouldn't cost an arm and a leg to get. So we'll see what they do. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what their cap situation looks like both this year and into the future, and I think that'll determine what their trade deadline scope is and how aggressive they get at the trade deadline. But it just sucks. I mean, he's such a fun guy to watch, and he's been a fun guy to watch. He's arguably the biggest name in baseball right now. I know for a while Juan Soto was there. You have Shohei there, but with his off-season issues and trickling into the start of the season, I don't really think he's the face of baseball anymore. So, Ronald Acuña, sorry, bud. That sucks to hear. But it'll be interesting to see how the Braves approach this. A happier and funnier story. Jose Ramirez found himself in the media this week. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians. They were playing the Angels recently, and Ramirez was pitched around with the bases loaded. Rightfully so. He's a good player, a great player. And after the game, he said to a media member, I can't remember who, it was a direct quote, and it was in perfect English. He said, they asked him about, what was that like getting pitched around, whatever. Asked him something about getting pitched around with the bases loaded. And he straight-faced said, I'm better than Barry Bonds. For those who might not be aware, there's a thing in baseball called the Bonds treatment, which means, with the bases loaded, you get intentionally walked. It's what happened to Barry Bonds a bunch when he was playing. So it's called the Bonds treatment. And Jose Ramirez, on record, said he was better than Barry Bonds. And, Jose Ramirez is a great baseball player. He's in a division with Luis Robert Jr., Bobby Witt Jr., and he's probably the best player in that division. So he's well on his way to a fantastic career. I really hope he was kidding when he said he was better than Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds is by far the best baseball player of all time, in my opinion. And, there's just not the numbers don't even compare. Barry Bonds has a career on base percentage of 444, which is absolutely insane. A 22-year career on base percentage of 444. Jose Ramirez has never had one season with a 444 on base percentage. Bonds has walked over 1,000 times more than he struck out in his career. And Bonds has been a 7-time MVP winner. I think Ramirez has only been an All-Star 5 times. So it's like, a good joke if that's what it was. But if it wasn't, Jose, you're a great guy. Cleveland loves you and you're loyal to that city. But, maybe a little out of bounds with that take there.
Yeah. He's pretty quiet up until this point. This is the first time where he's kind of put something absolutely ridiculous out in the media. But I think he's one of the better pure hitters in baseball. I definitely put him top 10 pure hitters in baseball. But like you said, statistically and over the course of an entire career, I mean, his numbers aren't really going to touch Barry Bonds. And I think that's really all the time we need to give that, because I feel like everybody's on the same page there. But if it's for a story and for humor, nicely done, because it does make for a good story. I mean, we're putting it on our podcast for a reason. So Jose Ramirez, job accomplished there, bud. Now, we are about to dive into Chicago sports stories and what's going on in the world of Chicago sports. We actually have a lot of stuff to talk about here because there's been a lot of things happening in the media. We can start on the side of the Blackhawks.
A lot of media stuff.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So I mean, we're grateful for it. It gives us a lot to talk about. So let's start with the Blackhawks. I'm just gonna tee it up. They made a trade, a questionable trade, but they made a trade. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the Chicago Blackhawks made a trade. Oh gosh, we'll call it like 3-4 days ago. It's May 29th today. The draft is officially 1 month away as of today. So they made this trade before the draft was a month away. And they made a trade with the New York Islanders. So the Blackhawks got the 18th overall pick in the first round and the 50th overall pick in the second round. And they sent to the Islanders the 20th overall pick in the first round and then picks 54 and 61 in the second round. So I think that's very, very interesting timing. That was my first thought, and that's my biggest thought is why now? You know, obviously the Blackhawks have someone or a couple people who they want in mind, and they clearly feel like they can't get him at 20, but apparently they maybe can get these people at 18. That's not a big jump, and there is a lot that can happen before the 18th pick comes up on draft night. So if this were draft night, I'd be like, sweet, they have a target. They're there. They're going to get up. They're going to go get them. Great. Really, really weird that this is happening now. I will say, playing devil's advocate, it probably costs a little bit less to do a trade like this now than it would on draft night because of the unknown of who's there and whatnot. But that was my big initial reaction. And my thought on this, maybe this is a hot take. Maybe it's not. Maybe other people are feeling this way. But I feel like this is a trade before another trade. He's going to use 18 to get up again because 18 is a little bit easier of a starting point than 20. For whatever reason, NHL GMs will like the fact that it starts with a teen or ends with a teen and it doesn't end in the 20s. So my gut tells me that maybe this is a move before another move, and he's going to try and pull a little something here, and kind of I have some more thoughts on this if Davidson sticks at 18 too. But if you want to tell me kind of your initial thoughts on it, and then I can get into that stuff as well.
Yeah, so I'll preface it with this: I'm not super familiar with the dollar amounts associated with certain draft picks, but that was one thing that crossed my mind is this just a way for him to save money by shedding a couple second round picks, or I guess one extra second round pick, to try and move up 2 spots? Is this a financial move by him? Obviously, a lot of people are going to look into, does he have somebody in mind? Is there a player he's looking at 18? But like, who's to say that whatever team is at 19 can't just go and jump the Blackhawks and get that player? You have a month to move your way up the draft board. So it's a little confusing in my opinion. I guess it's exciting. Everybody loves trades, but we'll know more a month from now, and I think it'll make a lot more sense a month from now. But for now, it's just everybody's trying to guess what the hell is the point of this trade?
Yeah, my takeaway as well, if this just works out where he sticks at 18 and that's just what he wanted to do, is I did write a story. I write for a website called Blackhawk Up, a fan-sided that covers the Blackhawks, and I wrote a story the other day about, who are some potential options for the Blackhawks at 18. I think Davidson maybe, if he plans on staying at 18 and taking someone, I think he maybe tipped his hand a little bit, because if he takes Demidov, he's probably going defense at 18. If he takes Levshunov, he's probably going forward at 18. There's significantly more forwards available that should be available at 18 as opposed to right shot defenseman, which is Levshunov's profile. So if he's planning on sticking at 18, he maybe tipped his hand a little bit. That could be Levshunov coming off the board at number 2 for them then. But we'll see. Obviously, like you're saying, we still got a month before this all even comes close to making sense and figuring out really what the plan is here. But at least for now, just kind of interesting. It's worth talking about.
Yeah, it's read the tea leaves season, right? You've got a month before the draft. You're trying to figure out every move that's going on, why it's happening, what that could mean, and everyone just comes up with their own story. So now Scott Powers had not only an interesting story, but a fun story for us Blackhawks fans. So Scott Powers of The Athletic, he had a mailbag story where he mentioned that he believes the Blackhawks will at least internally discuss whether or not they seriously consider bringing back Patrick Kane this summer. Is this a good idea? Do we like it? Why or why not?
You want to go first, or you want me to take that away?
I'm going to let you take it.
All right. I'm pretty conflicted on this. So the Blackhawks need help, no doubt about it. They need help. They need someone that can score consistently to pair with Bedard. They need just all sorts of offensive help. They tried to get it. Taylor Hall got hurt. Can't really do much about that. But aside from Bedard, at least at the NHL level, and maybe a few other guys, the cupboard's pretty bare in terms of what they got offensively from some people. But so obviously the player, Patrick Kane, without the Blackhawks ties or anything like that, that would make sense. He was playing good hockey in Detroit. He had hip surgery. That was a big knock on him going into this year is, what's Kane going to look like? He looked pretty damn good. And obviously he should have a decent market. Contenders, anyone would probably be looking at him. Just depends on what his cost will be and stuff. But at the same time, this is my big thing is, I don't know if I'd be crazy about it. I feel like that chapter has closed. Obviously, there's a dark cloud that hangs on that chapter, knowing everything that came to light with the Kyle Beach situation, things like that. And that book is kind of closed. The organization doesn't have any, as far as I know, doesn't have anyone employed that was part of those cup teams. And I feel like we're at a point now where we're moving on from that. Granted, it's a rich part of the history. And it's a part of history that'll always be around for better and for worse with how that situation unfolded too. But I think we should just stick with that hey, that chapter's over. There's no need to keep going back to that. We're moving on now. This is Bedard's time, and obviously you can look at Patrick Kane and be like, well, he could really show Bedard how to win in Chicago. He can be a great mentor, but they got Nick Foligno for that, and they just signed him to 2 more years. So, granted he doesn't know about winning in Chicago because he's only been here for 1 year, but they got him as that veteran presence who can say, hey kid, I'll show you how to be a pro and show you all the little things that you can do to save yourself and play as long as I have and be as impactful as I have. Obviously there's always that argument that Kane can be that guy too, and he has a bit more ties to the city of Chicago and the Blackhawks organization, and going from a tough spot to being able to hoist the cup 3 times. But I just feel like, hey, like you got to move on, and I feel like they've already made a lot of good efforts to get past that, and I feel like they should just stick with that and maybe not entertain, going back to those days or bringing back guys from those days. But at the same time, too, if they do decide to, obviously I'll always have love for Patrick Kane. I loved watching him in a Blackhawks uniform, and I'll never complain if I got to do that again.
I'll argue for the other side. So I'm in the same place as you. I'm on the fence about it, but I'll argue for why we should bring him back. I think if the contract makes sense, I can't see Kane signing more than like a 2-year deal. But I think if the contract makes sense, then it could be great for the Blackhawks. It could be even better for Connor Bedard because that takes the weight off of his shoulders even a little bit. And man, could you imagine how fun shootouts would be? But you look at you got
to get to shootouts to play in them, though.
Well, that's fair. I mean, the chances are we get to shootouts are better with Kane on our team than without. But This guy's familiar with the city of Chicago in two perspectives. He's familiar with the city of Chicago over the course of his career, but he's also familiar with the city of Chicago as a young athlete in Chicago who's one of the biggest emerging stars in the city of Chicago. And I think that provides a lot of value to Connor Bedard, as well as taking the weight off of his shoulders. He's also a good clubhouse guy at this point. When Patrick Kane was younger, he was kind of a little bit of a shithead. He's punching cab drivers, but he learned his lesson, and I feel like at this point he would be a good clubhouse guy for the Blackhawks. Yes, you do have that black cloud of the Kyle Beach situation. Sure, I don't think you're ever going to get rid of that or push that under the rug, but I think it could be a fun opportunity for the Blackhawks to bring him back. Let's be honest, it'll sell tickets. Fans would love to come back and see Patrick Kane go with Connor Bedard. But I think what boils down to it is what the money looks like and what the other offers are for Patrick Kane. Because maybe I'm wrong, but I can't see him doing a hometown discount. I think he can still get a pretty nice contract. After he came back from surgery, he looked pretty damn good for the Red Wings. So it's definitely something to monitor. But what's so funny?
I was just thinking about how he came back to the United Center and just broke our hearts, and we all loved it last year.
Honestly, though, I think that was just destiny, right? But
he
looked
prepared
pretty
for that.
100%. He looks pretty damn good for the Red Wings, so it's something I would entertain. I think it would bring a lot of value to the Blackhawks. I think it would bring a ton of value to Connor Bedard, but time will tell. I mean, we'll see how that all pans out.
Yeah, he'll have his fair share of suitors, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and you talk about hometown discount. I actually think he's gonna go play at home, and I think he'll end up going to Buffalo. I think they'll pay up a little bit more for him. And it seems like it is inevitable that he will eventually wear a Sabres uniform for one day, maybe, or a year. But I feel like that's going to happen at some point, and I feel like at this stage of his career, it might happen now. They're a team that could pay up for him. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Be interesting to see Interesting to see what publicly comes out. Obviously there's going to be some sort of internal discussion if we hear anything, that of how they were thinking about it or what was the ultimate sway one way or another and stuff like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's just, it's a good thing to see that they're at least open to listening to it because, obviously the bias and the fan in us is like, heck yeah, bring him home. But it's got to make sense too. So it's nice that they're weighing both options there.
Yeah, definitely. Now diving into a team who plays in the same building, also plays in the UC. We had an interesting storyline, not necessarily for the Bulls particularly, but with Lonzo Ball. He talked a lot about his injury in podcasts, and I thought it was honestly pretty eye-opening. I've never heard of this before, but in a recent interview, he talked about his injury in more detail. He mentioned that he had to receive a meniscus from a donor, get a bone allograft, and get new cartilage put in. He said that he'll be ready to go opening night this year. I've never heard anything like this in my entire life, which is why I sent it over to Sean, and I'm like, we definitely need to talk about this. What are your thoughts?
It's good to get clarity. There has been so much uncertainty with Lonzo Ball since after his first year of being injured. Everyone just thought it was your standard meniscus tear or whatever, because I think that's what it was originally diagnosed as. And, so everyone thought it was that, and then all of a sudden, where's Lonzo? What's going on with Lonzo? Is Lonzo going to play? Are the Bulls going to be able to get out of this contract? Is he ever going to, be
Can
around anymore? Yeah, can he run? Can he cut? So it was always like no one had any idea what was going on. So first off, it's great to hear from him directly, hey, here's what happened. This is why this is taking so long. I didn't know he had all those meniscus tears in the past either. And he said that he had no cartilage left. So he said it was bone to bone that was rubbing up there in his knee. And yeah, it's something that isn't super common. And once you sent it over, I started doing some research because I wanted to look into it a little bit more, see exactly what we were looking at here. And once I heard he was gonna come back for opening night, I was like, well, if he's saying it might be a decent chance, but like, let's see, like, is this really a possibility? So I found a study that was done in 2018, and it was published to the National Library of Medicine 1 year later. So there's 77% of athletes and physically active patients that were able to return to their sport or their activity after they had a meniscus allograft transplantation, which is basically what Lonzo Ball had done. Now, I take that with a grain of salt as well because Lonzo Ball's a professional athlete, so that's a lot more wear and tear on the body, a lot faster running, harder cuts, jumping, things like that. He's probably putting more stress on his body than maybe some of these people are, but I don't know exactly who was studied, so can't say for sure, but I'm going to assume. And then also kind of looking into that a little bit more, I was like, okay, well, that's great. They were able to return, but, how are they able to return? So from that group of 77%, about 2/3 of them were able to return to their pre-injury performance, which I thought was a lot. I was like, that's interesting. I would have thought it would have been a lot less than that just because it seems like a pretty serious deal. He's been out for a couple of years now, and just recently, within the last 6 months, posted a video of him getting up and down out of a chair. A couple months ago, we saw a video of him running. It's the first time we've seen these since he's been hurt. But, just good to hear from him. First off, as a human being and all the crap that he's dealt with since he's been hurt. Good to know he's in decent spirits, and good to know that he still wants to give it a go and he really wants to be back on the court, because obviously it'd be really easy for him to just say, you know what, this is a long shot for me to get back to the way I was. I think I'm going to call it quits. He's got enough money. Like, he could easily do that, but seems like he wants to get back out there, so good for him. But yeah, just my biggest takeaway was, hey, it's great to get some clarity.
That was me too. I give him a lot of credit for all the effort he's put in post-op and with physical therapy, because to deal with what he's dealt with, I think he's been out 3 years now. A lot of athletes would just, a lot of athletes would just sit back and say, you know what, that's okay. I had a good career. I had fun. I made some money, but I think it's time to turn the page. So props to him. I mean, I'll be transparent. I wasn't thrilled when the Bulls signed him in the first place. I was very vocal with Sean about how it was my least favorite signing the Bulls have ever made, and they've made some interesting ones. But I think that it'd be fun to see him come back. I think he's good for the team. He's one of those guys that, like, he's just an old-timer basketball player. Like, his style of play is just like old-time basketball. And, I think the Bulls need it, man. The rosters look the same. The rosters look the same for damn knows how long. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Kobe. They've got Io still too. They've got Caruso. So it'll be interesting to see how they shift those guys around. But, I mean, he's still got what? When does NBA season tip off? It tips off,
I think it's usually October.
Typically in October. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's still got 5 months before the season starts. So he's got more than enough time. I mean, he's had almost 3 years now too. So Lonzo, would love to see you back, but time will tell, what the version of Lonzo we're going to get. We talk about pure basketball. Women's basketball is exactly that. I know you've been keeping an eye on the Sky, and I know you're locked in. What have you noticed? I know that they've had a little bit of a roller coaster start to their season. What have you noticed from the Sky?
That's just been exactly it going into it. They're kind of going through a little bit of a rebuild here. They had 2 top picks, obviously. They're looking to build towards the future, not necessarily focusing on right now. But it's been they've had some good and some bad. They got their first win of the season over the Dallas Wings, and then a couple nights later they They beat the at the time undefeated New York Liberty, who were in the WNBA Finals last year. Yep. So good win for a Sky team. And then they battled with the Connecticut Sun recently as well, who was also undefeated, still might be. Sky ended up losing that game, but good to see them battle. And then they had a game last night against the Seattle Storm. They lost that. Seattle's not a very good team, I believe, record-wise right now. So, it just comes with the territory when you're building and focusing on the future. You'll have a few surprises, but you'll also take some lumps too. And Angel Reese she's been fun to watch, man. She's averaging 12 points per game and 8 rebounds per game. She is leading the WNBA in offensive rebounds per game with 4.8 per game. So love to see that, especially out of a rookie. And she's also 8th in the WNBA with her total of 8.6 rebounds per game. So shooting efficiency and like field goal percentage, still getting the hang of it. But she's the type of player who's impacting the game at multiple levels. So like seeing that, and just like we kind of talked about, just having her personality. Like she's already a photo of like a meme and stuff that the team was using for her, like kind of like mean mugging after an N1. So just fun seeing that. And the team also has guard Marina Mabre, who's averaging 16.8 points per game right now, and she's 16th in the WNBA. So couple bright spots there. They just got Isabel Harrison back from an injury. Sky have been injured too. That's another thing I forgot to mention. So they don't have a fully healthy roster. Izzy Harrison coming back. She was a double-digit point per game scorer for them last year. So good to have her back. She just played last night. And, the time is finally getting close here where we might see Camila Cardoso make her WNBA debut. Target date is roughly June 1st for her to... I believe they're playing June 1st. I think that's Saturday. I believe they are playing. It is possible she could suit up for that game. If not, she should be available right around that game. So some good, some bad. Fun team to watch. And definitely going to get a little bit more exciting here as they get some players back and kind of can start, seeing it all come together. So looking forward to watching more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Angel Reese's stats are changed once Cardoso comes back. I personally think it could help elevate her game because she doesn't have quite as much pressure on her as a rookie, and I'm a big name rookie for the WNBA. So that'll be a fun one to keep an eye on. So yeah, June 1st is a Saturday. So she plays, it'll be this Saturday. So yeah. Keep your eyes peeled. You want to get into some White Sox talk?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for the record, I know we talked about the game going on while we are recording. 8 minutes left in the first period. The Dallas Stars are up 2-0. So first time this series where Edmonton's down early. So let's see what happens.
Let's ride, baby. All right, so I'm actually going to let you lead this one. I'll let you talk about our lovely manager's comments.
Which one? We've had so many good managers lately. All right, so I'll get into it here. White Sox played the Orioles this past weekend, and if you like baseball, you can probably guess how that series went. One team is very good, the other is not. So the White Sox swept the Orioles with ease. Just kidding. So Sox lost to the Orioles on Sunday, and Scott Merkin of MLB.com talked to Pedro Grifol, the White Sox manager, after the game. And he had a quote that's Pedro Grifol said, and in this game, the White Sox were no hit. They ended up getting a hit later on. Danny Mendick pinch hit home run. Thank you for not making that game even more miserable. So, long story short, White Sox no hit. Got broken up eventually by a pinch hitter. Pedro did not like that very much. So here's his quote to Scott Merkin after the game. I don't have much. Crochet pitched his ass off. We got no hit through 8. It was actually 7 innings. We had a pinch hitter break it up. Most of the guys were effing flat today. unacceptable. That's all I got. So pretty rich from a manager who is an absolute buffoon to say that about his team. Now his team didn't like that.
Our fearless leader, baby.
Yeah. Corey Lee came to the rescue after the game, and to be fair, multiple players have said things as well. I just grabbed Corey's quote because it was same day, and Corey Lee also said to Scott Merkin. Scott asked him about the comments, I'm sure. Corey Lee said, "I'll let him comment on his statement. He's going to feel that way, and obviously we have a different feeling. He is entitled to his own opinion. I think that's a valid reason. It's nothing to hide about that." Pretty telling quotes there from two very different quotes about the White Sox performance. Now I'll also add, I saw a few things about players commenting on what Grifol said, and they were like, "Hey, we faced some good pitchers,
Yeah.
and like there's not much we can do about that." So clearly the players are feeling differently than Pedro Grifol. I'll let you kind of, what are your thoughts on both of those, or one or the other, and just kind of the even now it's Wednesday, it's like every day there's something new. It seems like this is a constant battle.
Pedro's just an asshat. That's the best way to put it. Like, this guy just keeps doubling down and doubling down and doubling down and talking about Jerry Reinsdorf. I mean, the last 2 days, all he's talked about is Jerry Reinsdorf. It's like, dude, we hate the guy. Why are you even bringing him up? Do you want to be hated even more than you already are?
You want to know why?
That part to me is just
because
he pays him.
Yeah, he is trying to save his job.
Yeah, 100%, because he pays him. But Pedro Grifol could not be a worse fit for a managerial job in the MLB, especially a team like the White Sox.
Yeah.
So his comments that he's made this week just make that situation stick out like more and more of a sore thumb. And when you've got a rookie like Corey Lee basically puffing his chest right back at Pedro, that just tells you he's lost the clubhouse already.
Yeah, and from him specifically too, not to interrupt you, but it's pretty interesting because Corey Lee's having a good year, but he's not consistently in the lineups. He'll go hit a home run or have a couple hits one night and be benched the next night. It's like there's, especially with him, like there's more going on there, like, or at least I can't speak for him. It seems like there's more going on there, and I'll let you continue, but I just had to get that in there too.
Yeah, I just think that when you hear those two quotes, I think it was Gavin Sheets. I may be wrong on this. I think it was Gavin Sheets that said, we faced some pretty good pitchers too, which is, Gavin Sheets is one of our better hitters on our team. But I think the timing of this is also really interesting, with the White Sox being 15-40. And now all he's doing is praising Jerry Reinsdorf. Like, come on, man. We know exactly what's going on. Get that shit out of here. But I'll get off my soapbox. I'll let you comment on the situation.
Yeah, a lot of the same feelings, same thoughts for me. First thing I thought of was this guy he should have no right to be able to call out the team like this. Trust me, I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes to the White Sox, just with how everything's unfolded over the last few years. But for you to say like the team's just flat and it's unacceptable, like, dude, your whole managerial tenure's been flat. You have like 30 wins in 2 years. Who are you to say, oh, this team's so bad? Like, they're also a reflection of you, dude. Like, that is your team. That's your clubhouse. That's your locker room. If you don't want them to be flat, build a freaking culture. Get guys excited to show up to the ballpark every day. Make them want to play for you. And that stuff is so far gone, and this guy's he's just waiting to get fired at this point, and it's just crazy that he's still even here, with how bad the team's been. Obviously I think they've lost like 6 or 7 games in a row, and I saw today if the Toronto series wraps up today, I believe, and they're losing 2-0 in the 6th. If they lose this game, it'll be the first time in franchise history they lose every game of a 7+ game homestand. Like, congratulations, Pedro Grifol. you're sounding like an idiot to the media, and you're also making history in all the wrong ways. So I just, and the whole him pleading his case to Jerry Reinsdorf to keep him around is just obnoxious. Like, and it pisses me off because there's one guy in the MLB, one owner that would have this clown around the organization still to this day, and it's Jerry Reinsdorf. And him pleading to him, saying, "Oh, he really cares about winning. Oh, let me talk Jerry Reinsdorf language. You don't have to spend money to win baseball games." Like, he'll probably freaking keep him next year too. And it's just like, every day I wake up and I see comments from this guy, especially right now because it's pretty prevalent. It's a pretty big deal around the clubhouse about everything that's been going back and forth. And it's just like, every day I'm reminded that this freaking idiot runs my organization, and I can't. It sucks, and the fact that he's lost the clubhouse publicly, like, that should be rule number one. You're gone. Like, there's no coming back from that. And we're we got a bunch of guys that might not even be around down the line, and they're still like, well, we don't give a shit about our manager. Like, it's just it's just a mess. And he doubled down on, I forgot to say this too, he doubled down on that take the next day too. Before the game, they asked him about it again, and you could tell. I don't know if you saw the video of him. He thought about it for a second. He was like, do I say this or should I not? And he doubled down on it. It's like, dude, shut up. You were just making yourself sound worse and worse. I think he's like kind of like tarnishing opportunities for himself outside of the White Sox too, because obviously you look at the record that he has as a manager, like, no one's going to want to touch that. And then you look at some of the things he says in the media, it's like, okay, not only can he not manage a team, but he clearly doesn't know how to get a message across or talk to media or anything like that. So just a disaster.
And I think to add another layer to it too, like, you look at Chris Getz, right? Like, let's say the season continues on the trajectory that they're on right now. Chris Getz is going to be put in a really hard place if Jerry Reinsdorf wants to keep Pedro Grifol around. So
if it were up to Chris Getz, Grifol would be gone already. I think so.
100%. It just depends on how Jerry approaches the situation.
Getz has already showed he does not care about previous ties to this organization, and anyone that he didn't bring in, whatever. He doesn't care about him. That, like, I hope Getz puts his foot down and says, you know what, that's enough of him. He's gone, and Jerry just has to deal with it, because if Jerry had his way, Pedro would get a 10-year contract extension. We would have dual managers, Pedro Grifol and Tony La Russa. They would share. They would wear a jersey together.
And honestly, there's been other stories this week. This one I don't want to touch on too much, just because as a person, he's not the greatest human. I don't know why he's on a roster.
Like,
because it's time. Mike Clevenger was placed on the IL, elbow soreness there. For me, I think it's just time to cut ties. We've got plenty of pitching in the minors that we can call up. We can give guys opportunities. That's what we talk about a lot in this podcast, is giving guys opportunities on the White Sox, because you're 15-40 and you've lost 9 of your last 10. Like, why aren't these younger guys getting an opportunity? So I think this gives Getz a chance to say, you know what, thanks for your time, but we're done with you. I would love to see it. I'm sure you're probably on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, the signing from the get-go never really made sense. I think they tried this last year where, I mean, I know what they did. They signed him to hopefully dangle him and get something at the trade deadline. Pretty sure they tried that last year, and there was not really a single team that was interested in trading for him. So why would that change this year? Because
it's a bargain.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was a bargain last year too. It's been consecutive 1-year deals, but I'm with you. I'd rather see a lot of guys get innings than him, but elbow soreness / elbow inflammation, that could be a long-term injury, so they might get out of that without having to cut ties with him. So we'll see what happens, but I would like to see like the Jonathan Cannons, and granted he's rehabbing and working his way back, but he's been in Charlotte before, and like the Sean Burks of the world, of the White Sox world, get some starts as opposed to Mike Clevenger, and and they just did the same with Brad Keller. They cut him loose. I thought that was great. Brought up Nick Nastrini.
Yep.
Results have not been good yet, but hey, at least he's getting some looks. So I'd like to see them continue that trend, but might have to do that with the injury here. So we'll see. Also, Edmonton tied at 2-2 in the first.
Wow, that's insane. Yeah, I think Nick Nastrini had a better outing against the Blue Jays the second time around. I mean, he still has some control issues here, but he's got the rest of the season to figure it out. And who knows, maybe, Clevenger getting let go just keeps Nick on the roster, and, there's another move down the road for other guys. But moving on to football talk and the Bears, I have an announcement for you. I'm officially a member of the Chicago Bears because I got my Gatorade towel.
Oh boy!
So
why aren't you wearing it?
So
on
we're
your
out
head?
here. It's official, guys. I'm a member of the Bears. Right now we're in the quiet part of the off season. I did one thing cross my mind that we haven't talked about really at all, and I think we needed the NFL draft to happen to really have this conversation. But a guy that we added this offseason, Keenan Allen, with drafting Rome Odunze at number 9. Previously, before the draft, there was some talk behind giving Keenan Allen an extension. Do you think that's off the table now?
No, I don't. I think they needed to get another receiver. Their depth was really thin even after getting Keenan Allen. So I don't think it impacts it. I'm gonna guess Keenan Allen gets extended. I'm gonna guess we won't see it till in season. I think it's gonna be a wait and see approach with him. Not because of his injuries or anything like that. I think it's gonna be him personally. He's been a Charger his whole career. He's probably going to prioritize winning. He'll probably want to see what Caleb Williams looks like for a little bit before he commits to staying in Chicago. But also with that being said, I think it's like the extension will probably be like 2 years. I don't think it'll be much longer than that. But no, I don't think drafting a Odunze impacts whether or not they're gonna extend him. I think it was a necessary move for them to get another receiver. I just think they're maybe got a few little things to work out before they try to nail that down with Keenan Allen. And my gut tells me they'll get something done eventually.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. It just brought up an interesting point, and I personally think he'll get extended before the season starts. I think they'll get some preseason games. He'll get some reps. They'll get to see him in full speed. They'll get to see him in pads and determine what they want to offer him. But I think he'll get an extension regardless, because to be honest, like the guys that are out there right now, I mean, Michael Thomas is really the biggest name of what's left for free agents. And like in his prime, he was great, but he hasn't been great since. So it's definitely a situation to monitor. I'd like to see a 2-year deal. I think definitely a 1-year deal, maybe an option of a second. And to be honest, man, like that's great leadership for Rome. You've got DJ Moore, you've got Keenan Allen, 2 guys who've been highly productive in the NFL for combined over a decade. So, and it makes for a fun offense. So, one guy, a former Bear, and I know he was a favorite player of yours for a short while, Tariq Cohen. He actually signed, today's Wednesday the 29th, he actually signed a 1-year deal with the Jets. I think that this is maybe just his last-ditch effort to try and make a roster, come back to the NFL, because I think the team is really interesting. They've already got a pretty good depth chart for running backs. I know that they drafted Braylon Allen from Wisconsin. They have...
I didn't know they drafted him.
Yeah, they have... I'm probably going to butcher his name here. Abinaconda, I think it was, from Pitt the year prior.
That's your boy.
And then he's a beast, man. And then they obviously have Bryce Hall. So I think it's going to be a depth chart that's going to be hard for him to climb. But
yeah,
I would love to see him come back. I would love to see Tariq Cohen come back because in his prime, he was really fun. It seemed like at one point the NFL kind of figured him out a little bit, but he's also a good guy. So I personally would love to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be tough sledding for him. I believe last time he made an NFL comeback, he tried to make the Panthers, and he couldn't do that. That's kind of telling, in my opinion. But he, like you're saying, really good guy. Happy that he gets an opportunity to try and make it back to the NFL. Obviously, hope for the best for him. I always will, unless he's playing for the Green Bay Packers. Then unfortunately, I'll have to hate him. But yeah, he'll have to work his way up. And hey, maybe they're looking at him as return specialist or something too with the new kickoff rules or something. Maybe they like what he can do. They just need to see what he can do in person and get him around team activities and stuff again. But yeah, it'll be tough. But hey, I hope it works out for him and hope he finds his way back on a roster or on the practice squad. So he's just back in the league again because he's fun to watch. And I know a lot of Bears players liked him, so I'm sure he would be a benefit to any clubhouse, locker room, organization that he goes to. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. I think he's just hoping for right place, right time, right? And the nature of the NFL, injuries happen. So I think maybe he's just hoping that he gets an opportunity. You never want to see guys get hurt, but that's just also the reality of the running back position. Guys go down every year. Their starting running back tore his ACL. So who knows what can happen? That's about all I have for today's episode. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Anything we didn't talk about?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything that we could. I got nothing.
Cool.
I'm all out of thoughts. Good. And I'm all out of takes. I emptied
that
the
means
clip.
We did it right.
I emptied the clip for your listeners.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in per usual. And then also per usual, if there's anything you want us to talk about, make sure to shoot us a message on Instagram, send us a DM, make sure to follow, make sure to like, make sure to share. That's obviously really important to us. So
give us a review if you like it.
Yeah. But it has to be good. 5 stars only. If you're going to write anything else, don't write a review. But yeah, send us a message if there's anything you want to hear us talk about. We are definitely more than open to it. But thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.